everyone, welcome. I'm Lisa Singer, and you are here for our Media Post Insider Summit BTS. It's our new summer series, and we're really excited. We get to talk with all these wonderful marketers, women marketers who are just they're so influential in their career, and just really wanted to dive deep and hear more about them, not just hear about their strategies and everything. And so with me today is Lynn Blashford, and she is the CMO for White Castle. Welcome, Lynn.
Hi, Lisa. Glad to be here.
Oh, I'm glad you are here. I really, obviously we've talked before at other events, and I might allude to some of what we've talked about, but it's really, like I said, it's just this is such a great opportunity to kind of get to know you outside of, with your CMO hat on. So I really appreciate you doing this. But we are initially going to start off doing something I'm trying. This is a new series, so I tried different things. And one of the things I want to do sort of a this or that question.
Okay.
So, all right. Onion rings or French fries?
French fries.
French fries, okay. Game of Thrones or a Hallmark movie?
Game of Thrones.
I'm a Hallmark girl. Online shopping or in-store?
In store.
Yeah. Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles. Maybe because I'm partial to the Belgian waffles that we have in the castles.
Yes. I was picking certain things that you guys are having. So. And this one I just had to throw in because, we can never hurt to include George Clooney or Brad Pitt.
Oh, I think I grew up more with Clooney.
Clooney? All right.
And he's from Rosemary Clooney is from Northern Kentucky, and she was a big craver.
Oh, really?
Yeah, wow. His aunt. It was aunt was Rosemary.
I knew George was from Kentucky originally, or his family.
Yes. Yeah.
But I did not know that she was a craver as well. So good little tidbit there. So and now, all right. So getting into a little bit more more serious side, but not serious. We're all still having fun. But White Castle is obviously it's known. It's or noted for being the first fast food burger, and that was what 1921.
1921.
1921. So what I want to ask you is, what was your first, meaning your first job in the fast food industry?
My first job in the fast food industry would have been for a really small little chain that is no longer in Louisville, Kentucky, called Ollie's Trolley. And that was me working in the restaurant. It was literally a trolley car that was serving burgers, fries, and shakes. And they had them in corners all around Louisville, Kentucky. And you'd walk up one side of the car and out the other. Literally was, no place to sit or anything. And from there on, I just went into restaurants, waiting tables and bartending. And I think food is fun. And it's a fun lifestyle, even when you're working in the operations.
It's a social.
Very social.
We all have a different life, like your schedules are different. So it really creates this family kind of feeling and social atmosphere.
It does. And I think the other aspect was moving over into the bartending world. It was kind of fun to be able to be on the other side of the bar and make money while you felt like you were still having fun with all the customers, but you're not spending any money. And when you're in college, that really mattered.
That is true. For someone who worked their way through college and early on in the career as cocktail waitress. Basically.
There you go.
I never got to the other side of the bar, and I loved it. I always wanted cocktail as opposed to food. I mean, we did a little food, but I enjoyed talking with everyone. Like you said, that social aspect. So, right. And when it was just all food, they didn't want to hear me hanging out.
So, like you're part of the party, even though they're spending the money and you're making the tips.
Right. It definitely made a difference. Okay, so then we segue into where you are now. Of course, the restaurant industry has been for a long time dominated by male dominated. It's been mostly men in terms of, at least in the executive levels. And although the last QSR summit we had, which was before COVID, that we were able to actually have it live. I remember Steve Smith. He took a note, like he basically was looking at the group, looking at the room in front of us, and how he noticed how many women there were. And it was we really were excited about that. But it is something that is starting to change, but hasn't completely. And you've been doing this for a long time. So when you first started out, talk about that. Talk about what kind of hurdles you had to sort of go through to get to where you are? And was there any maybe defining moment for you?
Yeah, it was a different day. And I've been in the business since I think my first job out of college was for a Domino's Pizza franchisee who was great to learn from as an entrepreneur. And it was important to understand that aspect of the business, not being on the corporate side, because it would become very valuable on in my career to understand and empathize with what is going on in a dealer or slash franchise kind of world, and not just kind of be corporate pushing out recommendations and promotions without that understanding. So early on, it was very male dominated in the marketing, and I don't think I even had a female supervisor until probably the 2000s.
Wow.
And I think there's been a big shift since then. Food and restaurants, and I think the manufacturing world, right? Because with White Castle, we have our CPG line of products too, not just the restaurants. Until the last few decades, I feel like we finally had a lot more female representation in the leadership roles. And at the time, it was, I'd say it was even a little subservient. I mean, there were times and there were hurdles and barriers when, and this is, I was thinking back, getting prepared for this, and I had some supervisors, people who were leads in our marketing departments at different chains that I worked with, who uh, were very dictatorial in nature and like to wield the power and influence. And even with the advertising agency partners, some of the leads, in creative, not necessarily client services, but were very male dominated at the time too. So the business partners also were male dominated. So there were not many female leadership people that you could look up to. What started to change that, at least in the restaurant industry, was the Women's Food Service Forum. So I'll give a call out to them. I remember going to the first forum probably in around 1999.
Mhm.
And it was very purposeful in order to start to advance the leadership skills, right? The competency skills of learning P&L and finance and other things so that women could start to advance in that industry specifically. So it was different.
But how are you, as you said, it was a little bit, sort of speaking to you guys in a way, very domineering way, or this is what we expect. And yes, this women's group comes in to sort of teach you and train women to sort of step up. But how did you get those men to listen? I mean, was there something, anything that happened in the course of your career that you noticed sort of that changing over, sort of getting past that point and now being accepted as a person of influence?
Yeah. It was, you had to prove yourself, right? So it had to be, you really had to do your homework. This is where, decades ago, I had to learn and be curious about what my constituents could provide and educate me on. So I would go to the person in our accounting or finance or business analysis group and ask them to teach me, okay, I want to know what every line item on the P&L means. You had to be curious, and you had to, actually, it showed that you were a collaborator with those people too. So you had to learn every aspect of the business in order to make very informed recommendations, have those recommendations work, right? Then you had to prove it out. And it seemed like you had to do that with some repetition before you would start to be taken seriously. And it was those moments that, oh, Lynn knows what she's talking about, or the people around me. I mean, credit to teams of us that would do those things. They kind of know what they're talking about. The last time they made this recommendation, we saw sales go up, we made more money, the check went up, whatever it may have been. It was a lot of had to prove yourself.
Showing your value.
Yeah, until you got to places, and I was fortunate here at White Castle when I started almost 11 years ago, until you started to be with other people who helped advance your career, right? Those other women mentors who went through probably more challenges that I did, who understood and had leadership roles that helped pave that way a little bit more.
Was there anything when you were coming across these mentors, women mentors, um, anything that you think distinguished them, in terms of, because there is the argument for women can, especially when it comes to the food industry and especially when it's family oriented, that women in leadership really makes sense. was there anything that you were seeing that maybe distinguished them and that was able to also then to continue on as you brought more women into the fold?
Uh, it was those that were almost, they were those that learned how to navigate and be aggressively, or I should say, appropriately assertive for the room. So you really had to read the room and understand the different personalities from what used to be in our world a lot of, the old guy mentality, especially with franchisees who had been around for decades. You had to understand how to navigate and push when you knew you could, and to what extent. And those were women that kind of, you just watched how they conducted themselves and how the respect that they received from others around them. And you mimic that in some ways. And then we would talk about it. Right? So after a meeting, when something went well or didn't go well, and there were times when things didn't go well, your recommendation wasn't accepted, that we talk about it afterwards. Like, what could we have done different? What could we have sent out as a pre-read? What data points could we have pulled in? What was the audience? What was the hot button that we didn't address? So you really took every opportunity to learn from the situation. And the few women, and I didn't have many until recently, it was those few women in the most recent, I'd say 15 years, that gave you other examples of how to approach it. Because I had some learning experiences where there were some men supervisors that said, you act too smart.
Really?
Like you have to listen more. Now, I think the listen more was a really good thing, because sometimes you were trying to prove that you knew what you were talking about, and therefore might have been talking too fast, or didn't pause enough, or didn't ask and seek enough input in a discussion. But then ultimately it was, well, wait a minute, I'm not going to not be smart, but how do I go about making sure that I'm not making anybody else defensive or putting them in a situation where they feel like, well, who is this young woman coming in here telling us what to do? We've been in business for 30 years,
Right.
It really is just learning to navigate, learning to read people. And you know what, being in the hospitality side, right? Waiting tables, cocktail waiters, those kinds of things really kind of set you up for understanding how to deal with a range of people early on in young adulthood.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even what you said, I mean, you're too smart. I mean, that's maybe not the way to tell someone anything, but the fact is, there is being smart, and then there's also being smart in the sense of, as you said, sort of maneuvering or that sensibility and how to work with people, and to combine the two. It's
Mhm.
not just about showing that I know this, and this. It's about how do you show people that in a way that's going to make them listen, and then you also listen to them. So that really is key. I think that's definitely a huge factor. And you touched on, you said now you have more women that you see, 11 years later, cut to. So how have things evolved? I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but in terms of from then, what would you, let's even go back up a little bit. What advice would you give, not to the Lynn that was, waitressing in the, whatever. I mean, but the Lynn that was just starting out in the business side and on the business side of restaurants. What advice would you give that maybe you wish you heard back then?
Mhm.
Is it what you just said, or is there anything else that you might add to that?
There was the learn to listen more and engage your constituents and the key stakeholders earlier on. So there was a time, and I think it was the organizational design and the people around you that didn't give me the opportunity so much until maybe you were in that boardroom to do so. The environment now is so different, and that is so key that we even teach everybody in our department and throughout the organization is we have everybody around us, and the working environment is an open environment. It's intended to be, you're engaging your stakeholders, right? If I'm going to the head of our manufacturing division or the head of sales, we're talking well before we get into the room to maybe discuss a proposal. So it's having your constituents kind of on the same page or understanding. It's like, I'm thinking about this idea. So it would be to engage others around you. So don't worry about being so formal and waiting till the presentation is completely ready and you got to put that recommendation and business case out there. Talk to people, right? Go over to their desk or put a 30 minutes on the schedule and say, I'm kind of putting together these thoughts. What do you think? Is this a better path or is this a better path? Should we talk to supply chain first? It's really engaging people along the way in that kind of project management process before you get to these very disciplined kinds of stages. I mean, talking to people is always really just the best way to get work done, we find.
Yeah, and listening, of course,
Yes.
not just asking, but really taking it in.
Yes.
But
And I
so,
think people also see that you care about what they do.
mhm,
Instead of different disciplines and throughout the organization being kind of siloed, when you come over to talk to them, it shows that you care about how their role fits into what you may be considering, putting forth as a proposal. And I think people appreciate that. Makes them feel appreciated and engaged in what they're doing.
yeah, of course. And so, and then when you now come forward, and as you said, it has evolved, and touch on that, but also, would you give that same advice to Lynn starting out today?
Yes. Yep. Still
Same advice.
clearly. So yeah, that is, I think that's why I've always liked working in a mid-sized company, because you have those avenues and those doors are very open to that kind of collaboration and discussion. And it makes work more productive versus feeling like you're always maybe hitting your head against the wall, because everybody is really collaborative and working together. So that's, to me, would also be find that environment that you like to work in. There may be some people who enjoy being more individual in what they do as a contributor, and that's fine too. But for me personally, I enjoy the dialogue, I enjoy strategizing together, and I think we get so much more work done. There's a team member kind of a team building aspect that goes along with that, which is why I've always been at a kind of mid-sized company, because you also get to influence everything in the organization in some way. You're not just in digital marketing, or you're not just in a supply chain. We here at White Castle, just lending it to where we're at now, we talk to everybody in every department. We're all just confined to 2 floors, and we can just work through the challenges and figure out and problem solve together. And I enjoy that. So you've got to find the right size company for what your personality and what it is you want to contribute.
In a little bit, in terms of what it is like today, especially for women in your industry, is has how much has that evolved right now? And do you see that it needs more still? Like, where are you at?
I see myself surrounded by women everywhere. I'm part of the ANA's CMO Growth Council. I mean, women are equal, if not higher, in numbers. We go to many different conferences or webinars that I see, and I think marketing, at least from a marketing standpoint, if anything, we're trying to be balanced to ensure that we have more male representation coming in at this point. I'd say in the last 10 years, it feels like it's been very female oriented in the organizations I've been in. So the balance from a gender standpoint is very good. And, I see leaders, CFOs, CIOs, so much more balanced in gender. And of course, here at White Castle, our president and CEO is the great granddaughter of the founder. So she's the first female president in the lineage here of the family at White Castle. So I'm fortunate to be surrounded by people that it almost is a little bit of a non-issue. If anything, like many companies, we're just working on our inclusivity and ethnic makeup in the home office for greater diversity there.
And I want to touch on that because when we spoke at the CPG Summit earlier this year, and you did, we were talking about engaging with your customers, but one of the things that we talked about was how White Castle was very open to speaking out right away, to speaking out against social injustice, to supporting Black Lives Matter. And you said it was really in the soul of White Castle, like that was who they were, and you were so proud of that and really happy about that. What I want to ask you, because you obviously did that, and that's a big part of who White Castle is, but what is in the soul of Lynn in terms of do you feel sort of a responsibility to also speak out freely about, sort of be that voice for people who maybe you have this incredible platform in as a CMO? Do you feel the responsibility maybe to speak out like that and and support, causes that maybe they don't have as much of a, platform that they can speak to?
I do. I feel like I'm so aligned with the leadership values here and the brand values at White Castle that there's no issue with how we speak out from a brand voice, which I feel is very representative of myself and our team here in marketing and throughout the organization. And it's been a very prideful moment for our team members around us to see the brand take stands and have a voice and be outspoken, as well as back it up by many of the activities that we do internally. I mean, 65% of our 10,000 team members are diverse. The majority of our general managers are female. So we've got an organization that are well steps ahead, I think, of the average, and we're very proud of that. For me, I guess in my soul, wow, you're digging deep, Lisa.
That's what we do here.
I know.
I'm not going to make you cry like Barbara Walters, but no.
I feel like if anything, what my turn has been is really been around the development of my team. And I think I say that because I feel like I'm approaching the last decade of my career, that it's really turned to the development of our younger people in the department. And that's been a big focus of mine, talent and development within the organization. And that does involve diversity and inclusivity. So that's been a real passion point lately in the last few years. So the things that the whole country has been going through, as well as our brand and the restaurants in many underserved neighborhoods, is really aligned. And I think that's our passion right now.
That's great. And that's wonderful, like you said, that you can really, especially at this point in your career where you can put yourself out there. You're not so much, your head isn't in the sand to trying to like just get yourself in, that career path going. You're at a spot where you can then sort of spread yourself out, which I think is awesome that you actually do that.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go out of the soul searching stuff right now. And I want to ask you if there is a particular marketing campaign that you have seen that you were just like, wow, this is so good. It's genius. I love it. Anything you can think of offhand?
Gosh, there's so much good work in our industry these days. And a lot of it is similar. So if anything, it's been harder to stand out because I think there are so many brands and so many smart marketers out there that people are starting to do a little bit of the same in their voice. So it's been difficult to stand out. Of course, all the work that P&G does around diversity is just stellar. The Dove campaign continues. I can't believe that's been going on for longer than a decade.
Yep.
When you think about when they started, Like a Girl and all the other iterations of that has just been phenomenal. I think those are the ones that stand out to me. And we use those internally. Like when we use that as inspiration for talking to our leadership and talking to our marketing teams about here's other brands and how they're doing it differently and how they took a stand. I do think we've tried to illustrate not just, I guess, the soul and the voice, but the business aspect of it too, to show, first of all, they're doing what's right regardless. And that's the way we look at things. Is it the right thing to do? And yes, we're not in a nonprofit business. We are in a for-profit business. So that's the other aspect to say, when you see other brands do things on the surface, you also can look deeper and say, they have a shopper marketing program that's going against this. They have media support here. This is how their sales team is executing something else in trade. So I'm also impressed when I see the holistic and very comprehensive campaigns, not just, I guess, the surface elements of it. Because creativity is great. There's some wonderful creative kinds of things, but I really am more impressed when I see a very comprehensive campaign put together. That's why I enjoy things like the Effies, seeing the, what was the impact? What was it beyond just the fact that we did something and we got, 500 billion social impressions.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's true. I mean, as a marketer, that's a perfect answer. I mean, whereas someone else might be like, oh, I like the Nike where we see so and so, because I mean, and that's valid too. And I'm not saying anything about I don't know what their
Well, now
campaign.
that was something creatively. So if I did just take one creative spot that I thought was brilliant, it was the Nike merging that they came out with I think about a year ago. I even shared it with a lot of our executive team, the brilliance in the filmmaking. And they took one athlete and merged it into another. It was like the side by side. Oh goodness. I know somebody who's listening to this will know exactly what the campaign is, but it was beautifully and brilliantly done. So it was like one athlete merged into another, sort of split screen, but it was seamless. So
And yeah, and I definitely like that. Those are the kinds of things I think that jump out, but sometimes also just the simple things, it's just so simple. And so there's just a lot of ways to make value out of a commercial or to really stand out for you for whatever reason. For me, I love like a cute puppy, you know.
one of the things
Remember it.
we'll try to take some of those and make a teaching moment. It's very clear sometimes when you can look at a creative execution and you come back and go, this was their positioning. So from a marketing standpoint, oh, this is who they're talking against competitively, and this is the positioning statement. So we try to unravel that sometimes in the department and say, look at this. What do you think what was that positioning statement?
Yeah, no, that's smart.
Teachable moment.
All right, and I can't not ask you about White Castle Cravers. So those are your customers. Those are your who you have for years, always, to a point where obsession for White Castle. So I want to ask you, what do you crave?
Oh,
and it can't be White Castle. Nothing in White Castle.
No, that's fine.
It doesn't have to be food, anything.
We are keepers of we consider ourselves keepers of the crave here. So that's our role. And of course we love the brand and everything we produce. But for me personally, it's ice cream.
Ice cream? Any particular kind?
We've got so many different local brands like Jenny's and Graters, and I'm not a snob.
What flavor do you what do you go to?
Oh, there's like the raspberry chocolate chip. There's a favorite mint chocolate chip lately. I don't know what it is with your taste buds. You know how they evolve. Like I hated mint when I was young, and now all of a sudden I like mint and dark chocolate. So.
Oh, very good. Okay, yeah, I like I'm more the chocolate. I'm very the simple. Although I do like Oreo, like in terms of flavors, but
chocolate chip cookie.
I don't like too much, like thrown into it. It just needs to be a little simpler. So, all right. So finally, I want to ask you, just in terms of, is there something that you do in your daily life that you think makes you better at your job? Not necessarily even better as a marketer, but better at your job.
It is the listening. It's just listening and slowing down, because I think as a role in a profession, you become, especially in today's data age, you have to be this great curator of information, as well as absorbing what humanity is doing, your customer base is doing, and you kind of sit at the center of that. So, I mean, okay, so I'm not the one who is like, I don't get up and do an hour's worth of exercise. I'm not meditating, doing all these things, and all these very inspirational people do. And I look at my life when I was thinking about this, and I thought, I don't do anything that is, I really don't. I'm not an avid reader. My boss here, oh my gosh, she would read a book a week. She was great. I'm like, give me an article. I need a Harvard Business Review article. I digest that. I feel like I'm been the anti all the great habits that all these wonderful people do, and leaders, and you read their books and everything else. And I was like, wow, I just live life. I really just lean into who I am and some of the just natural tendencies that I have, and leverage those as best I can.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. And I am with you when I sometimes read those, like, because I'm not a morning person. And when they say, oh, they get up and do this, and I'm like, I'm lucky I can get my cup of coffee.
I know. I enjoy sleep. They laugh at me when we travel on the road, because I'm like, I'm not doing a 6 a.m. flight. That's not me. And by the way, I need like at least 7.5 hours. So if we're going to go out to dinner or do anything or be up late for a shoot, I'm not getting up till. So I
Yeah.
don't know. You just try to stay healthy, keep a healthy mind, body.
Yep. I agree. So, well, thank you so much, Lynn. I really appreciate it. And I loved hearing this side of you and, more about you. So that's what this is all about. So thank you, everyone. It's for, we're going to be doing this Insider Summit BTS. It's going to be once a week. And Lynn, I hope you'll keep watching and see this. But we
Absolutely.
really just want to just sort of, as we kind of say, pull back the curtain and hear a little bit more about what's going on with these amazing women in our industry. And if you have anyone that you want me to find out more about or feature, just please let me know and I will do my best to get them. In the meantime, thank you so much. And again, thank you, Lynn. I really appreciate it. This was great.
Thank you, Lisa. Bye.
Bye.